Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make your own personalised ring and add your name to it. Now in this instance I'm going to add the name Paul to the ring. So if you start Fluid Designer up, first thing we want to do is to go to the rings folder. So if we click on here and we want to look for rings, so we open the rings folder and we want the all UK sizes. So I'm just going to drag and drop that object onto the workspace. So I'm just holding down the center mouse button there and just rocking the mouse so I can see the actual ring itself, and at the moment you can see it's 1mm by 5mm. So it's 1mm thick, 5mm tall, and at the moment it's on the default ring size H+. Well, that's not my size, so what I'm going to do is to remove the outline of the ring and return it to the basic curve, which is what this object is here. And I'm now going to hide that object because I don't want to use the default ring. And I'm just scrolling down this list here by scrolling the center mouse button, and I'm looking for size P+, 18.14, and I'm just going to switch that on. So the eye just gives me the view of it, and the arrow allows me to actually select the object. And I know the object selected is when it's in yellow, and also you can see this little highlight on the curve here next to UK size P. So I've got that object highlighted, and what I'm going to do now is to apply the thickness back to it of 1mm by 5mm. So that's essentially like the startup ring, but it's just a different inner diameter now. This is UK size P+. And I'm going to write the word Paul around the outside of this. Now I do know that this actually isn't going to be deep enough for the characters that I'm going to use, so I am actually going to change this to 10mm depth, but we could of course have done that later. So now I'm going to, I want to add in the text Paul, so I'm just going to move that panel out of the way. And we're going to use, if we just click on up here, so if I just click on Group Library and click on up here, we want to use, I'm going to use Harrington font again, and so I'm going to use these letters here. So A for as part of Paul, so I'm going to start off with the letter P. Now if I drag and drop this onto the workspace, my ring will disappear and I'll just have the letter P. That's not how you add things in Fluid Designer. Only the opening object you should drag and drop them. After that we need to use File and Append. So if I go to File and Append, and if I just go up through the menu system here until I get to Groups here, this will show me all the folders on my system which have got patterns in them. And I want to use the alphabet Harrington font pattern, and the first letter in my name is P for Paul, so it's Harrington font P. And I need to look for the object, the Harrington font P object, and I need to append it from the library. That means to copy it in from here into my workspace. So that's append. Now when it's got the red outline, it's not exactly highlighted at the moment, so I just need to click on it. Now that's quite large at the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the S key on the keyboard to scale this down in size. So if I press S on the keyboard, now I can use the mouse, but I'm actually going to type a particular value, and I'm going to type 0.5, in other words half size, and then press the enter key. Now whenever you scale in Fluid Designer, certainly when you scale curves, you must always apply the scale. So we need to hold down the control key and press A on the keyboard, and then click on where it says scale, and notice the thickness of the P changes as we do that. I'm just going to move the P to the left a little bit so I can put the A in the middle now. So we go to File and Append, and if we just go up through the menu system, we should get back to Harrington fonts, and I want letter A, and I want the object A, Harrington font A, and append that from the library. And again I need to click on it to make sure it's selected, and I'm going to scale it again, so it's S on my keyboard, and I'm going to type 0.5 so it's consistent with the last one, and enter. Now notice at this point the thicknesses are different. That's because I haven't applied the scale, so I need to do Control A and apply the scale, and notice that the A and the P are now the same thickness, and I can just reposition it wherever I want. Now, because I'm going to wrap it around this ring, they don't actually need to overlap the P and the A, so I'm going to leave it something like that. So I now need letter U, so it's File and Append again. Go up through the menu system until you get to Harrington Fonts. I want Harrington Font U, and I want the object. The Harrington Font U object, and append that from the library. Same process again. Highlight it. You can see the yellow line around it. Press S on the keyboard to scale, and I'm going to type 0.5 again, so that they're all scaled consistently. And again, you can see that the thickness of that is a little bit odd, but so I need to apply the scale, so it's Control A and apply the scale. And I'm just going to position it there like that. And we now need to append the last letter, L. So File and Append, up through the menu system. We want letter L, object, Harrington Font L, and append that from the library. And again, we need to position it, but we also need to scale it. So S on the keyboard, 0.5, and Control A, and apply that scale. So I'm going to leave the word Paul looking like that now. And what I want to do is to join all those letters together. And the way to do that is, well, we've got the L highlighted at the moment. If I hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and then press U, A and P, okay, I've got all those four objects highlighted now, and if I go to Tools, Object Tools, and if I join them together, they will now move as one word. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, this is the center of mass of this object at the moment as far as Fluid Design is concerned. Well, it's not really the true center of this object, so what I'm going to just do is, if I go to Tools, Object Tools, Origin, I'm going to set the origin as the geometry of the shape. What that should mean is that this cursor here should move somewhere in the middle of the object. So if I go to Tools, Object Tools, Origin to the geometry, and if you look now, that this is the center of the object Paul, but this is actually our main center. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to go to Cursor and snap the selection to the cursor. The selection is the word Paul, and if I do Snap Selection to Cursor, it will put Paul right in the middle of my workspace now. Now that's quite important in terms of lining it up with the ring. Okay, so we've got our word Paul. It's all joined together. We've set the center of mass by going to Tools, Object Tools, Origin to the geometry, and then we've selected Cursor, Snap Selection to Cursor to put it in the middle of the screen. Now we want to wrap it around this ring, but before we do that, we need to rotate this object. Now there are a number of different ways of rotating, but if I just go to the Show the Main Information icon here, you'll see the word rotation appear. This is actually the size, the dimensions of this word Paul. So you can see it's about 16 millimeters long and about 10 millimeters high, so that's about 10 millimeters, 16 millimeters, and then it's 2 millimeters deep. Now I need to rotate this, and I need to rotate it about the x-axis first of all here. So if I hold down the left mouse button and drag the mouse to the right, you'll see that the number changes. And I want 90, and I can click on the end here and just rotate it, change it slowly, or I could just type 90 in. So there's the word Paul, rotated 90 degrees. Now what I want to do is to wrap it around the ring. And we can do that by using a modifier. And the modifier that we use is a curve modifier, because that's essentially what we want to do. We want to curve this word Paul. And the object that we want to curve it around is actually the ring itself. And if we just highlight the ring, so the ring is UK size P+. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap Paul around P+ around the ring. So if I highlight Paul again, so the object that I'm looking for in this list here is way down at the bottom. So I'm just scrolling the center mouse button here, and I'm looking for P+, size P+. So 18.14. So that will wrap Paul around the ring. Now, as you can see, the word Paul is on the inside here. So it's actually back to front when we look at the outside of the ring. So I've done one rotation about the x-axis, 90 degrees. I now need to rotate it about the z-axis as well. So if I just click on main information here, if I point to Z and if I hold down the left mouse button and drag the mouse, you can see the word Paul is rotating around now. And the value that I want here is actually 180 degrees. So when I do it exactly 180, you can see Paul is now the right way round. So we've rotated it about the x-axis 90 degrees, and we've also now rotated it about the z-axis. But as you can see, it's also still on the inside. So we need to reposition this word Paul in some ways. And the way to do that is if we go to View and Top, look at it from the top. If we go into Edit mode now, so we've got Paul highlighted, so if we press Tab key on the keyboard and go into Edit mode, what I want to do essentially is to move this word Paul up so that the bottom of it lines up with the red line, which is the x-axis. Now before I can do that, I need to press the A key on the keyboard to select all of Paul. So I'm selecting all of those points there. So A is for select all, switches off all, or selects all. So I've got all of them selected. If I just go to View from the top again, and what I need to do is to just move this up so that the bottom of Paul is in line with the red line there, which is the x-axis. Now if I press the Tab key now to return to normal mode, you'll see that the Paul is in a much better position now. It actually is on the outside of my ring. There is just a slight bit of overlap on the inside here. So what I need to do is to just move it a little bit more, in this instance, move it a little bit above the x-axis. So if I just go to View and Top again, if I press the Tab key, and if I just zoom in, I'm just scrolling the center mouse button to zoom in. Now if I drag the y-axis now, it's moving it too far away from the red line. I only want to move it a short distance away, and the reason for that is this feature called Snap is on, and what Snap does is it moves the object from one grid line here to the next one. So if I switch off the snap for the moment, if I just move this object up slightly away from the x-axis, and I'm just going to switch the snap back on, and I'm scrolling out with the center mouse button again, and if I press Tab key this time, you should see that the position of the Paul, well, there's still a little bit on the inside there, so perhaps I just need to move it a little bit more. Go to View Top again, just zoom in and just move it up a little bit up. So I've got the snap on, haven't I? So let me switch the snap off, just move it up slightly more, and then I'm switching the snap back on, and then press Tab to come out of Edit mode, and you can see that that's much better now. Could move it still a little bit further. Go on, I'll go a little bit more. So View from the top, so it's Tab key to go into Edit mode, switch off the snap, just move it up a little bit more, switch my snap back on, and press the Tab key to come out of Edit mode, and that's much better now. Oh, I know what it is. I haven't lined it up in this direction. That's why it's looking a little bit strange there. Yeah, one final thing that I could do here is I could reposition the word Paul slightly. I've got my I've got the snap on again. I want to let me just switch the snap off. If I just drag this down a bit, that will bring the L. Yeah, that's much better. That's brought the L onto the ring much better now, so it's not overlapping on the inside. So with the snap off again, I can do fine movement. If we've got the snap on, we get quite chunky movement when we move it. So you just have to decide what you need. I'm just going to switch it off slightly. Just move it up a real touch at the bottom there. Right, that's it, and that's where I'm going to leave it now. So there's the Paul. Now before we can 3D print this, what we need to do is to join the two objects together, but it's not a good idea to join them as they are at the moment. What we need to do is to convert both of these objects to meshes first of all. So if we go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert Paul to a mesh, you'll see that it turns white. And Tools, Object Tools, and convert the ring to a mesh, so that turns white. And then if we highlight the ring and hold down the Shift key and highlight Paul, so make sure both objects are highlighted, and go to Tools, Object Tools, and join them together. So join them together as one, and if I just drag the arrow there, you can see that the two objects are joined together now. If you try joining the two curves together before you change them to meshes, you will mess up the thickness of the objects. They'll try to be the same thickness, and that will look really strange. So in this instance, you do need to go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert them to meshes before you join the two together. Okay, so there's a ring essentially embossed with the name Paul. Thank you.